Hello there.
It usually starts in a quiet room. Not the dramatic kind of quiet. Just the ordinary one. The soft hum of a fan turning in slow circles. The faint glow of your phone lighting up the ceiling. A message thread still open, frozen in time. Outside, maybe there's rain tapping. Gently against the window. Not heavy enough to demand attention. Just steady enough to be noticed if you're already awake. You're lying on your back, staring at nothing in particular. The day is over. The world has gone still. And yet your mind is replaying moments that were never fully yours. A conversation that almost meant something. A smile that lingered a little too long. A maybe that felt like a promise. It's strange how something can feel so real, even when it never officially began. There are no anniversary dates to remember. No shared photos to delete. No dramatic breakup scene to point to. Just a subtle shift. A gradual fading. A slow realization that whatever this was, or could have been, isn't going anywhere. And somehow, that absence hurts in a very specific way. Because there was potential. And potential is powerful. It lives in the imagination. It fills in the blanks with perfect lighting and perfect timing. It tells you how things might unfold if only circumstances aligned. If only feelings matched. If only courage arrived at the right moment. So you don't just lose a person. You lose the version of the future you quietly built around them. And when the room is this quiet, when the rain keeps tapping and the screen keeps glowing, that's when it hits you. You're grieving something that never even had the chance to exist. And maybe that's the part no one really talks about. We are taught how to grieve endings that are official. Breakups, divorce papers, final conversations with clear, painful words. Those come with structure. They give you something solid to point at and say, asterisk, that's what happened. Asterisk. But this kind of grief is shapeless. It's like standing at a train station with a ticket in your hand, only to realize the train was never scheduled to arrive. You weren't abandoned. You weren't rejected in some dramatic way. There was just a slow, quiet understanding that the platform would stay empty. And that emptiness is hard to explain. Psychologically, we don't just attach to people. We attach to possibilities. Our minds are incredibly creative. Give them a few warm conversations and a shared laugh, and they'll start drafting entire futures. Not in a desperate way, just in a human way. We are wired for connection. We are wired to imagine what safety and closeness might feel like. So when something almost becomes something, your brain doesn't file it under nothing. Happened. It files it under unfinished. Unfinished stories linger. They echo. There's a concept in psychology called ambiguous loss. It's the kind of loss without clear closure. No funeral. No goodbye speech. Just absence without definition. And our minds struggle with that. We like conclusions. We like labels. We like knowing where to place our emotions. But here, there's nowhere obvious to put them. So you question yourself. Was it even real? Am I overreacting? Why does this hurt so much if we weren't even together? Let me say this gently. It makes sense that it hurts. You weren't grieving a relationship. You were grieving a version of hope. And hope, even when it's fragile and unspoken, can feel incredibly alive. Losing that doesn't make you dramatic. It makes you human. I remember one in particular. It wasn't dramatic. There was no grand confession. No late-night airport scene. Just small, ordinary moments that felt heavier than they should have. We used to sit across from each other at a quiet cafe on weekday evenings. The kind with warm yellow lights and slightly scratched wooden tables. The espresso machine would hiss every few minutes. And there was always soft indie music playing in the background. Not loud enough to interrupt. Just loud enough to fill the silences. I remember the way they would rest their chin on their hand when they listened. The way their eyes softened when I talked about something I cared about. Once, our knees brushed under the table, and neither of us moved away right away. It wasn't much, but it felt like something. I started noticing small details. The way their laugh came out unexpectedly. Sharp and then dissolved into something quieter. The faint scent of their laundry detergent. When they leaned in to show me something on their phone. The way they would text me, "Did you get home safe?" and how I would reread that message more times than I'd like to admit. Nothing explicit was ever said. No labels. No promises. Just this gentle current pulling us in the same direction. At least, that's what I thought. Then, gradually, the rhythm changed. Replies came slower. Plans became maybe next week. Conversations felt slightly thinner, like someone had turned down the color saturation on something that used to feel warm. I told myself I was imagining it. One evening, I sat alone in that same cafe. Same yellow lights. Same scratch table. The chair across from me empty this time. My phone face down on the table, silent. I remember the hum of the refrigerator behind the counter and the sound of two strangers laughing near the window. And I realized I had built something in my head that didn't fully exist in reality. I wasn't heartbroken in the cinematic sense. There was no breakup text to cry over. But I felt this quiet ache in my chest, like I had lost a place I had never actually lived in. And that felt almost harder to explain. It took me a while to understand that what I was really mourning wasn't the person. It was the version of myself that existed around the possibility of them. When I was with them, even in those small, undefined moments, I felt slightly expanded, a little more hopeful, a little more open. There was a softness in me that only showed up when I believed something beautiful might be forming. And when it faded, I thought that softness disappeared too. But it didn't. It just didn't have a place to land. I started to see that maybe the pain wasn't proof that I had lost the one. Maybe it was proof that I was capable of imagining something tender, capable of wanting connection without cynicism, capable of seeing a future and letting myself feel excited about it. That realization changed something, because instead of asking, why didn't this work? I began asking, what did this reveal about me? It revealed that I still hope, that I still care, that I'm willing to feel deeply, even without guarantees. And that's not weakness. There's a quiet kind of strength in allowing yourself to feel disappointment without hardening into bitterness, in admitting, yes, this mattered to me, even if it didn't become official or public or permanent. Some connections are not meant to last. Some are not even meant to fully begin. They exist like sketches, light pencil outlines of what could be, not to become finished paintings, but to show you what shapes your heart tends to draw. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the point was never the relationship itself. Maybe the point was discovering that your heart is still alive. So if tonight feels a little heavier than it should, if you find yourself missing someone you never officially had, if your chest tightens over memories that technically don't count, I hope you let yourself feel it anyway. There's nothing foolish about grieving a possibility. There's nothing dramatic about missing a version of the future that once felt warm in your hands. Your heart doesn't operate on technicalities. It doesn't wait for paperwork or labels to decide whether something mattered. It simply responds to connection. And sometimes, the quietest connections leave the softest, longest echoes. But here's the gentle truth. The ache you feel isn't proof that you lost your only chance at something beautiful. It's proof that you are capable of imagining beauty in the first place. That you can still lean toward someone. That you can still hope without knowing the outcome. That kind of openness is rare. And it's worth protecting. One day, the room will still be quiet, the fan humming, the rain tapping, the phone screen dim. But the ache will feel less sharp. The memory will feel less like a wound and more like a small, private chapter you once held close. Not a failure. Not a mistake. Just a moment where your heart practiced loving. And maybe that's all it needed to do. So tonight, if you're lying there replaying what never fully happened, instead of asking why it ended, maybe ask yourself this. Isn't it beautiful that you were brave enough to feel it at all?
Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story.